What is going on, everyone? Anthony here, and welcome back to another video here on Let's Talk Resident Evil. And in today's video, I wanted to talk about live-action Resident Evil. It's something that we can't really get away from when it comes to main big studios that are pumping out Resident Evil films or live-action series and reboots and everything else that they usually do with these franchises that they have the license to make material for. And I already did, a video talking about the potential leaks for the new movies and the Netflix series, the new Netflix series, not the one that came out in 2021, but the updated one that is going to be another standalone series that has James Marcus's daughter. Some of the stuff that we've been reading so far, now granted, we have been taking it with a grain of salt, but some of the stuff sounds like it might be another train wreck, right? But I wanted to bring this up because I get a lot of people that ask me, why do I still watch some of this stuff? Why do I still review it? If it's not worth going after, if it's not going to satisfy you. I mean, we just did The Keeper's Diary, a Biohazard story, which was all of us Resident Evil channels coming together almost like an Avengers Assemble moment and trying to make something that was crowdfunded, and it was successful. I mean, it's almost at 200,000 views, probably already is by the time of this video. And this video isn't to pat myself or ourselves on the back for being able to make that project, right? But it goes to show what fans can do when you have your eyes on the prize, so to speak. You know exactly what Resident Evil should be, how it should feel, how aesthetically it should look, how it should sound between the sound effects, the music, the lighting, the vibe, right? It's also capturing the vibe of Resident Evil. Not just these characters look like that character and, oh, we have a bunch of people cosplaying as these characters, because that's what it always felt like in the live-action big studio Resident Evil films that we got, where it just felt like it was like people cosplaying as, Leon and Barry. Like, by the time it got to Retribution for Anderson's films, I was already really checked out, to be honest with you, as far as like waiting for characters to show up. The one person I did really like was Sienna as Jill. I thought that she did a really good job. Obviously, the material wasn't really there for her because it wasn't really her film. It was Alice's film. But there's instances of them getting some stuff, more spot on than others, right? And we're not here to bash on the movies in this video. Whether you like them, that's perfectly fine. If you like some and not others, that's perfectly fine too. Very much like I say with the other videos that I do when I talk about like modern Resident Evil games or, the newest titles, right? I'm never gatekeeping. I'm never saying, oh, you can't get into it because of this or that. Like, however you get into Resident Evil, whether it's a live action film or a current up-to-date brand new sequel like Resident Evil Village, right, or 9 that's going to be up and coming, I embrace it all, because hopefully someone can actually find the roots back to the beginning, right? They can actually see what it once was and what it eventually turned into. So that's why I don't think that gateways like this are really a bad thing. Now, the movies typically make a lot of money. Welcome to Raccoon City obviously didn't really do very well. Some people say it did better on DVD and video. I don't really know about that, or DVD and streaming, I should say. But it's like, they took a hit because it was after, 2020 when we didn't have theaters open, and then 2021 things were just opening. It just was bad timing, right? So they still make money, and the Netflix series, I don't really know how they gauge that with how well it does, I guess streaming numbers and how long people stay tuned in for each episode, but they canceled the Netflix series after a month, the last one with Lance Reddick, which I thought he was the best part of the show, best actor, right? They didn't really write Wesker or his clones, how I would have probably approached it as a fan, but I see what they did, and he was a good actor. Obviously, rest in peace to him, you know what I mean? It's not his fault that the show was what it was. He just took on a role, and he did really good in that role. I just think that there is going to be different things that we see out of these upcoming films that aren't really going to put us in a, positive mindset as far as, something that is going to be worth our time. Now, I review this stuff on the channel because, well, this is what I do. I cover Resident Evil day in and day out, or week in, week out, whenever there's actual news or when there's not news. I'm playing Resident Evil. I'm trying to bring up Resident Evil videos and discussions. So a lot of people might be like, well, Anthony, just stop seeing them. Stop supporting them because you're a part of the problem. But the good thing is that there's ways to kind of get around that. You can ask for press screenings. You can ask for, free tickets if possible. I've never gotten hooked up with anything in the past when it comes to movies, but there's ways now with the rewards programs and stuff that you go through with these movie theaters that I'm already signed up for. You could save a little bit of money. Now, when it comes to the Netflix thing, well, I already have Netflix as a, person who tries to cut down a lot of streaming personally, as far as how many things you pay for a month, because a lot of it can add up. Everybody's tired of streaming services at this point because you have to have so much to get all the stuff you like, and they're always going up in price. But I think when it comes to both of these concepts here, it's either going to hit a certain market of people like that did watch the Netflix series of Resident Evil that might just know it by name. It's always going to be for a more casual viewing audience. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody that likes it is a casual. No, I'm not trying to say that. But it's catching the eye of people that are on Netflix. They might know the name because Resident Evil is a known name at this point. 28 years old, it should be. And it's just a matter of how much money we see is thrown into these productions, and very, very little is done to satisfy fans. Now, it might be like beating a dead horse because, like I said, I've had people on the show talk about this, and we talked about it post Keeper's Diary as well. What we were able to do with, around 55K, obviously a little bit less after taxes and everything else, but what we were able to make with a very small independent budget, a lot of people are saying, well, you guys did it better than Hollywood. And I just want to say that it's very humbling, Again, I'm not making this video to pat ourselves on the back, but I will say that I'm very happy and very, very content with the response of that film. But the reason is because I think we are looking at it from a fan's lens. Like, there's still fans that give us crap about certain things, like Jill's beret, for example, right? Nobody really had military experience on the set, so it's not like we could have stopped our actress and have been like, oh, let's adjust the beret like this. Like, we didn't have that. So very small independent project, we tried our best. And I think you are going to be seeing more of that happening with not only Resident Evil but just fan films in general. I think when people have enough of the studios kind of jumping all over the franchise immediately and ruining it because they have the money or they have the resources, right? So you really don't need to pump in that much money for some of these films to make it work. But obviously, big studios, they want to show like they have something, they want to show that they have that backing of the money, and whether it's for CG or it's for, different things, there has to be a line that has to be drawn when it comes to how many times can you make up these stories. I think that's the biggest thing that kind of offends me, is not only that Welcome to Raccoon City is getting a prequel, or a sequel, technically, that is a prequel that's supposed to cover Resident Evil 0, which, again, why are we doing this now? I don't know. But the fact that the Netflix series is, in fact, trying to just make up its own story. And again, post-apocalyptic. I just don't understand. Resident Evil has never been post-apocalyptic in the games at all. It's you're doing things in the games to prevent that from happening. I'm sure, these villains have that goal. But, like, for example, like Resident Evil Extinction, post-apocalyptic, Mad Max type, right? Very Mad Max inspired. I like Mad Max, but I just don't think it necessarily belongs in Resident Evil. He tried something different, but it and they had the callbacks to, Bub the Zombie from Day of the Dead, who was trying to communicate and learn these functionalities as a human, right? So you had that stuff in there. So it all takes influence from something. But I just find it so offensive when they do something like that, because you're trying to create a story that doesn't exist previously. Now, again, there are shows like the Fallout show that I don't want to neglect in this conversation, because it's doing something where it actually takes place in the game's canon and lore, but it's explaining things that we've never seen. That's a slippery slope, because how long can you keep that up as far as each season you're saying it's canon to the game? That's a pretty bold move. Now, Resident Evil has yet to do that, thank God, because it would have been a shit show. The only thing that is canon that is film-wise in this franchise is the CGI films. But other than that, the live actions have always stayed kind of separate. Now, I know stuff like Fallout, Last of Us, Twisted Metal, these are getting more praised reviews nowadays versus the material that video game adaptations had up until this point. I think when Sonic the Hedgehog came out and that got, fixed and fans really liked that and it made a lot of money, ever since then we've seen an uptick in video game properties, right? And we thought maybe Welcome to Raccoon City or the Netflix show could have been a breath of fresh air, but by the time we were seeing how it was shaping up, it didn't look good, and in my opinion, when I watched it, I was like, yeah, this just doesn't do it for me. Same thing with the Netflix show. Now, it's not too late to turn it around. I don't want to act like these studios can never pull something like this off, but with Resident Evil, it seems to be near impossible. And I think that's why sometimes fans want to step up to the plate and try something on their own. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But yeah, there's a lot of talk online as this stuff trickles out with these live action movies or live action series of, whether or not it's going to kind of hold itself up in this current climate of video game adaptations. And I think that's probably why I just wanted to make this video is, does Resident Evil ever stand a chance in a main studio spotlight along with all these other video game adaptations that are actually doing pretty well? It's something that is attainable. Yeah, I mean, I think anyone can get behind a Resident Evil project that's a fan and say, you know what, we have to do this with the story, we have to do that. But it's the other producers and the other, executives that are at the top, the tippy top, that are calling the shots sometimes, and that's when you get into a studio project as opposed to like an independent project where you don't have someone breathing down your neck saying you have to do this, you have to do that, cut this out, can't do that, right? That's when it gets tricky. And I think a lot of these bad ideas come from just someone saying, oh, what if we did that? Let's just do this now. And it's like, it wasn't planned like that, like the week before filming, but now we're doing this weird thing. Like, that's just the way it works with so many moving parts. So I can't speak for myself as far as working on that level because I've never worked on a professional level within the industry in Hollywood. But I will say that it's always apparent that there is someone trying to chime in with their ideas, and it never really works out with these big studios. It never really works out, and I think that's why, we're starting to see fans kind of get tired of the franchises that never get it right. I did see the Last of Us show on HBO. I thought that was pretty good. There was things that I still wish they did differently. It's not a perfect show in my opinion. And for the Fallout show, I did watch the first episode and it was really enjoyable. I have to finish it, but I'm not really a big Fallout fan. But the first episode did really entice me to dive further into that lore. And I think that's what a Resident Evil film or a live, action series on Netflix should do for the fans that I feel like it might have for some. Like I said, you're going to have people, especially from the Paul Anderson era, where they were making millions of dollars, millions. A lot of those people are probably like, you know what? I want to check that out, or I want to learn more about that. But it's one thing when you're learning about the movie's story, which is drastically different from the game story, where Fallout keeps it pretty close, from what I understand, keeps it pretty damn close. Not only that, but it's canon. It's like in the lore. So it has no choice but to be as accurate. But my thing is not to make a Resident Evil live action thing canon, but make the episode, right, or a movie really make people want to learn more about it or go and play the games. You know, I think that is a big thing that they've failed to do in recent years, where it just seems like they're kind of just fumbling around with these new ideas or trying stuff that never happened before, combining multiple games into one movie. That's not really going to entice people to play it. Now, look, the name Resident Evil already gets asses in seats. I understand that. Sometimes you don't have to have a complete convincing plot thread or anything that is going to pull people in. Some people will just check it out. But I think when fans see these video game adaptations actually doing very well and they're accurate, you would think it should really set the bar for these expectations that fans want. I mean, they definitely aren't strangers to the noise that fans make when they don't like something from the Resident Evil live action side, but sometimes they're very ignorant to respond to it. So that's the only thing. I just want to let it be known that I will watch anything that comes out Resident Evil. I will review it because I have this channel. If I don't have Netflix by the time the show comes out, I'll find a way to get it. There's ways. Just like how there's ways to see movies without paying a lot of money, that's what I'll do, you know? So I'm never going to sit here and say I will never watch a live-action film again because we did our own independent production. No, but it's like, wake up, guys. You have people over here in this corner doing some pretty good live-action stuff for other video game IPs. Why does Resident Evil always get the short end of the stick? I don't know, but I just wanted to make this video not so much as a, you know, screaming and yelling rant, because I know the last video I did about this live action stuff, people were like, holy crap, Ant's pretty heated. It was off a live stream, you know what I mean? It was you know, highlighted off of that, and obviously I was getting a little, you know, passionate about my opinions, but I just kind of wanted to sit here in a chill discussion and just be like, come on, studios, you could do better. I mean, why are we sitting here not being able to pull off something when these video game adaptations are actually getting a better, you know, name for themselves, where before it was just like, oh, live action of that game, that's going to be bad, or a live action movie of this game, man, that's going to be horrible. Like, there's just certain things that I feel like we're getting to a point where we're getting better with those kind of things, but I feel like Resident Evil always has this like dark cloud for its live action adaptations from these big studios. So I want to know what you think of the current state of video game adaptations. Do you ever think that these studios will gain your trust, that they can pull something off like a Last of Us show or like a Fallout show where, again, especially with Last of Us, it's not perfect. I'm a big fan of Last of Us. That show was probably a good 6 or 7 out of 10 for me. Fallout show, only saw the first episode. So I could only reference so much here. I know you guys watching might have finished that show. I did finish Twisted Metal as well. I actually really enjoyed that. I thought that was a good way to go about a video game that doesn't have a crazy story, and they made something really entertaining, in my opinion. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that we could ever get to a point where these studios, or this up-and-coming era of the new show on Netflix and the new movie, do you think we'll see those improvements that should be made? But that's it for this video. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe if you're new, and stay tuned for more Let's Talk Resident Evil.